And welcome back. Our second and final conversation for the morning is with Leon Leslie. He's a clinical psychologist, and of course, the topic we're going to embark upon has to do with suicide. And on September 10th, we celebrated World Suicide Prevention Day. Talk to us, first of all, about the general picture of suicide and the Belizean society, how we are either dealing with the increase in numbers of those persons who have either attempted to take their own lives or have proceeded to take their own lives.
Alrighty. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me. Suicide in Belize has always been present. It's always been around, while in the past, it wasn't a topic per se that was on the forefront. But with the recent increase in mental health awareness and people promoting more their mental health, we have begun to see other aspects. Suicide is one of those where, remarkably, over the past couple of years, it is on the increase. Well, the attempts have been on the increase. Successful suicide, well, let me not use the word successful, but those who have went through the entire process and did the suicide, it has become very prominent, especially with COVID these past 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. While the data is not well known, it's not outright out there, you'd have to get that through Ministry of Health. Once you work within the field, you are aware of all these attempts that people try to do here and there within, well, all over the country. The rate has increased, as I said, over the past 2 years, where I believe last year we were in the 70s or 80s, if I'm not mistaken. This year alone, I am aware of several that have attempted, in terms of numbers, attempted and went through the entire process. I believe it's a little higher than last year, but I said the Ministry of Health would be the one to get you those numbers.
You know, I think globally though, we've understood that the pandemic has severely affected all our mental health. And I say that openly because it's difficult to adjust to such a new circumstance across the board. People who have a predisposition to mental health illnesses, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed, they're struggling even more. But what do you see? Do you see people who have never had a mental health illness before coming for counseling? Or are we only seeing people returning who perhaps have struggled at some point in time?
There's a combination of both. A lot of people recently who have come to the forefront are those suffering with anxiety, and that is brought on from the pandemic. Losing job, losing the financial income. The vaccine was another topic that brought in a host of clients into our center because they were anxious whether I should take the vaccine, don't take the vaccine. And then with the government passing some of these SIs that you have to take the test every 2 weeks if you don't take the vaccine, it caused anxiety in some people. But also you have a lot of people, I'd say at least 60%, who had a mental illness before, either depression and anxiety. Those are the two more common ones in Belize. And it only got worse because now being at home, you focus more on yourself. There's no distraction. You don't have as much socializing to do on the outside. So you reflect more on yourself and you begin to see, as I like to tell my clients, all the dirt basically you swept under the rug. Now you're doing house cleaning.
You're just sitting in it.
And everything is there.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? A lot of people don't know how to manage it because now you have to face the reality that, hey, I got to tackle this issue now that I was trying to put off, and now it's right there glaring me in the face.
One of the most alarming pieces of information as it regards to suicide was last week when there was word that as many as 16 police officers are on suicide watch. And we're thinking that these are the men and the women who are supposed to protect and serve us as a Belizean society. And perhaps we're not focusing on some of the challenges that they themselves are facing, either in the line of duty, either at home or elsewhere, that would bring them to the brink of this kind of a situation, if I could describe it as such. As a clinical psychologist, how do you begin to process what you're seeing in terms of this rise in numbers within the department?
The police, along with nurses, BDF, so it's not only the police, but what I'm seeing with these people, they work under a high stress environment. Belize, and we're still lacking in that area, we provide only through the EAP program, Employee Assistance Program, assistance for these officers. If they don't want to come in willingly, they go through the EAP. They work, as I said, you're on the front line. Imagine coming close to someone and you don't even know if that person has COVID. Imagine things running through your head. What if this person has COVID? I catch it, I take it home. So there's a lot that processes in people's mind that we don't see that playing through, because now this is the way you think, and it happens so fast, it's almost like automatic in your head. When these officers discharge a weapon, for example, or even respond to a murder scene, these officers, in my opinion, and I hope we reach that point, should be given counseling for a period of time, given a time off. Hey, take a week or two, let's see exactly that you're not experiencing any trauma. To see a dead body or to be around the smell, it is a lot. To respond to dealing with an intoxicated youth, for example, it is a lot, because you have to maintain your patience, and at some point as a human being your emotions need to be addressed, and a lot of them don't address it. They use coping mechanisms with whatever way they know how to. In Belize, sadly, our coping mechanism is consuming alcohol.
And we don't have enough data on it, but it's clear to see that that's kind of the go-to way of how people try to avoid their problems. But let me go back for a minute. You said also nurses. I know frontline workers, the ones I've talked to, they are incredibly frustrated. They are frustrated by the workload that they have. They're frustrated by seeing people die from this preventable disease and the way in which they die. What have you been seeing from frontline workers other than police?
The burnout rate is high. And these frontline workers are the ones who have access to tools, for a lack of a better word, in order to attempt a suicide. A nurse, for example, has all the pills, has the blades there, etc. So for them, the risk is a little higher. The alarm is a little higher for these people, and they're very overworked. We already had a nurse shortage in Belize, and now to increase hours, to try to balance your life along with your working life and not being compensated the way they would want is very difficult for them.
Help us understand what pushes someone to take their own life. It's one of those things that unfortunately is extremely stigmatized in this country, and very often there's a guilt that's placed on loved ones who stay behind, and they're always unanswered questions. From what you know, how do you explain to people what happens?
One of the first things we have to understand, and we have to, as a country, change the way we look at talking about death, for example. Everyone at some point in their life thinks about dying, or thinks about, what if I would just come out of this world? What would happen to me? Everyone does that. So we have to face that reality first. The problem lies when you begin to get consumed by it every day. What if I just go? What if I just go? What if this? What would happen? And you become consumed that at some point you're at your low point because of everything else happening in your life, that you say, you know what, let me just see what plays out. In most suicide attempts, it's very spontaneous, where it just happens. Those are the ones that we are left with a lot of questions, because there was no telltale signs. A lot of people would leave notes, begin to do other behaviors that you could see the signs building. So you could more or less begin to see, all right, when you analyze the person's life, there was other things happening and the person didn't see hope. when you lack hope, you begin to drop in a despair, you drop in a hole, and
Yeah.
sadly, that is when you begin to think all these negative things and you don't think about the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you hear stories of people who have attempted, you know, they speak of having so much pain that they don't know what to do with it, that literally they feel the only way out is to end their life. And that's scary. But there's so many people in this country who are at that point or near that point. And I'm sure that's a concerning thing for you. You work at the community counseling center. This is where free counseling services, I wish people knew that more, is available. It's at the hub, right?
Yes, the hub.
So people can go and see you, make an appointment, talk things through, and try to figure out what they're feeling, why they're feeling. But not enough people do that. They're at home struggling and fighting off thoughts of suicide.
Yes, it is. But one of the first things we got to understand also, whenever you hear the word counseling, we still believe, what are we crazy people? Again, we have these labels, the stigma behind it. For some reason, there's a split now. Don't get me wrong. The
Yeah.
younger generation, and when I say younger, I mean younger than me,
Yeah.
as opposed to my generation and older, we didn't grow up in that idea of mental health,
Yeah.
going to see a therapist. The younger generation, because they're more exposed now to the world due to internet, TV, different things, they are more open. So we see a lot of young people coming in. So for them, they see the need, and I applaud a lot of them when they walk in alone. I applaud them to come in and seeking the help on their own. Well, if you're a minor, of course, you need an adult due to consent. But the older generation, no, we look at it again as, no, I don't need no help. That's never how we may raise. And we try to battle it on our own, but everyone needs support. The key thing here is support. And as a person supporting someone going through tough time, you don't give suggestions, you just listen. We as a culture, again, we're quick to find solutions. Have you tried that? Have you done that?
Or they tell me what to do.
Yes, but just listening. Some of these people just want to get things out. So you just listen as much as you can. If need be, you accompany the person to get the help. But again, we are not our brother's keeper in mental health. So I would never say, you want me to accompany you. Initially, you may need that body, that support to go with you. You don't have to sit in a session now. That is if the person wants you in there as a support. And then with parents, for teenagers, for example, a lot of parents look at the teenagers, buy nothing wrong with you, get nothing wrong with you, just the act out.
Yeah.
Listen to the child. We rarely want to listen.
One of the things I have thought about, having had these conversations about suicide on the show, is two things. One, we know that men are more predisposed to killing themselves. And it's kind of, once they decide, it's done. And secondly, one of the main triggers for men to want to kill themselves is economic problems. Because they have been taught and raised to believe that they are the breadwinners for the family. Now, when we know this level of unemployment, how concerning is that?
It is concerning. We have tried and we attempt as much as possible to get males to come in. We need the men to come and speak about that taboo topic of emotions. But we go through emotions. Even when I was growing up, I really wanted to face that reality of talking about being sad or crying. All of that changed when I began to study in the US and how open it was. And for me, counseling was fun. When I was doing my graduate school, you had to do counseling to become a counselor.
That's right.
It was fun, and you learn these techniques. One of the things I pride myself on is being a male in Belize who is aware of counseling and at the same time is aware of how our culture operates.
Yeah.
And how to bridge that gap to that person, that male specifically.
Yeah.
It's a very dynamic relationship in that you try not to touch how you feel and things like that. You find ways around it as best as possible to get that person to talk. So you latch on to maybe sports, you maybe latch on to politics. These are topics where men enjoy talking about. So you got to use those to bring out things. It's sports, we have a lot of these athletes who suffer from mental illness, and you use them as example to show the person, hey, if this person could do it, you could do it.
Yeah.
We saw Simone Biles withdraw from the Olympics recently, citing mental health
Mental
issues
health,
as
yes.
part of that.
Yeah.
She had a lot of
I think
pressure.
that was probably one of the strongest thing I've ever seen a person do in such a public way, saying, I am not mentally strong enough to complete what is kind of my ultimate dream of getting to the Olympics. But let's step back for a moment. When we talk about, let's say somebody's at home and they see their husband struggling. They know them, they're married, they know that they're struggling. Maybe not sitting around crying in what the stereotypical depression looks like, but knowing that because they're not making the money they used to make, they're struggling to keep all the bills paid, and they're worried about what they will do next. How does someone intervene, especially understanding our Belizean culture?
In that case, the spouse, you said, is seeing her husband. One of the things we got to promote here in Belize is relationship, marriage relationship, that discussion in the household between a wife and a husband. Depending on how that dynamic is playing out, it could work to the advantage of the husband, in that the wife could suggest these things to bring in the husband, or to get ideas in discussing how to get hope, what's for the future, where is it can we gain something or better our situation. So you got to really look around in that case, especially if this husband refuses to talk. So the wife has to begin to assume a lot of things in that, well, this the bother and that the bother. Encourage the person, hey, sitting here is good, but at some point, what can we do together? So the key word here is together, not on your own.
Never get out there and get that job.
Yes. Well, again, never let the person feel isolated, that, well, you're alone. We can do this together. Let's search for another job. Let's search for something to do. Again, we're in this together. Offer the suggestion. If the wife is working, well, I'll try my best to balance us out. Let's restructure our budget. Let's do this. In time, you can begin to search for a next job and get back on your feet. Remind the person it's not the end. It's just a matter you have to try. As time goes by, if this person reaches into counseling, again, you begin to let the person see the world from a different lens. Let's say this person was making per month $4,000. Realistically, to get another job at that range may be a little difficult at this time, being the way our economy is set. But what alternatives are there? Something is better than nothing. We have to remember that.
Yeah, I can, I think of the different struggles people may be experiencing at this time, and it's important that they know that they can access services. But let's for a moment divert from adults and talk about children. Now, as you know, we don't typically report on suicides in the news. It doesn't mean that we don't know it happens. And there have been a few cases where we hear of children who are younger than teenage aged committing suicide. And it's one of those things that people have a hard time accepting or even believing. How do you put that into perspective for us?
But kids, unlike adults, are more emotional. Their emotions are a little bit more unstable because they're still trying to identify themselves. So they go through from high to low. They have a wider range. That's what we gotta let people understand. Their emotions can get the better of them at times, but a child will build up. It's not like a child will suddenly just, oh, let me go and try to kill myself. That will build up. You'll see again the signs in a kid. I'll say somewhere from like 15 down, you will see signs in these people where they are begin to write letters, they are begin to research more about death. You may see a change in the way they dress completely, a change in their health. They don't want to bathe, they don't want to brush their teeth, they begin to lock themselves in their room, they don't eat as much. So these changes begin to signal that something is wrong with my kid. And this is where, as a parent, you should be aware of how your kid's behavior is. As a responsible parent, that is one of the things you gotta do. Understand your kid's movement, behavior, likes, dislikes. When a child comes to you, for example, and asks, hey, can you help me with this? Or can you tell me this? Never say later or another time right now. The more you repeat that, the more the child begins to say, well, you know what, you don't care for me. And again, that builds up over time. It's not something where after the first time the child will just let that sink in and go about. No, that's a build up. Without school, they don't have the friends to talk to. School is their coping mechanism. So with kids, identify these signs, let the child know
But
it
it
is
is
okay.
possible, right?
It is possible. It is. It is.
And it has happened in this country.
It has happened a lot in this country. Normally, I don't see below 10 as much as maybe between 10 to 15. But again, like I said, it is there. Let the kid know it's okay to talk, to feel sad, to cry. Especially the boys. Boys go through a lot. We got to let them understand it's okay to be different, to change, to talk about who you are and what you want in life.
All right. Well, how do people access counseling services?
For us, you either walk in or call in. We're located on Lake Independence Boulevard. Or the easiest way that I tell people is by the new bridge, going to Belama. And you just either, as I said, call 227-3992 and you set up an appointment. We have 4 counselors there. And we also have one in Belmopan. Out district, we try our best currently to do more teletherapy. It's not ideal, but it is something that we're trying. Hopefully within the coming months, we could begin to branch out a little.
All right.
And it's a weekly session.
And it's free.
It's free. It is free.
It is
So-
free, and it's professional counseling
Yes.
services, not just a nice person that's sitting
No.
there. Yeah.
All of us there, we have our master's degree.
Yeah.
And we have been in the field for a period of time. And we deal again with kids, adults, couples, family,
Good.
whatever it may be, we are there to offer the help.
Well, we appreciate you coming in and kind of giving us some perspective as to the situation of suicide in this country. And hopefully, anyone who is in need of someone to talk to will be able to access the services of the Community Counseling Center. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back,